Hello, hello. Welcome to the Inspired Ideas podcast and a YouTube video. I am excited to be here today because I have one of my clients and colleagues and friends, and it's Dr. Stephanie Holmes, and she is the creator of the Christian Neurodiverse Marriage website, and she has a podcast, and she has a book coming out that is really going to be helpful to families that are going through things that she went through. We've been palling around on some Voxer coaching. We met at a conference. And Stephanie, go ahead and just introduce yourself to everybody so they can hear deeper about who you are.
Yeah, thank you, Diane. So I'm happy to be here. The short story elevator pitch, so to speak, is my dream for a while had been to be a counselor. Newly married, did the counseling thing, LPC, do what you have to do to be a counselor. Had a private practice, marriage and family counseling. And when my oldest daughter turned about 5 or 6, she was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, which at the time was not very well known. Autism was supposed to be for boys only. It was 1 in 10,000, supposedly. And even as a counselor, I didn't really know kind of what to do. And so there weren't a lot of resources available. So I just kind of went into mom mode of I've got to figure this out, but I happen to be a counselor. So I'm going to try to put my skills into play. And trying to find resources available for her and our family, there really weren't any. So kind of later in life, once we were a little bit past that part of the journey, I decided I wanted to be the resource that I wish I would have had when my children were younger. So that kind of led me into research, getting my doctorate, moving into being an author, the podcast. And really, it was our life experience that kind of drove now what's my professional experience.
Now I love this, and we have so much to unpack. So you and your husband do some of the business together, and then you have coaching clients and counseling clients. That's right.
Yeah. So at the moment, I have technically 3 businesses, as you have shared with me. I just kind of thought it was all one thing, but apparently I am running 3 and trying to get down to 2. But I do have an office where I kind of work in my community here in the metro Atlanta area that I'm phasing out at the end of this year. Then my husband and I co-founded the International Association of Christian Neurodiverse Marriage, which is a mouthful. And that's where we train pastors, coaches, clergies, chaplain, anybody who's working with marriage who really needs to understand the impact of autism on marriage and family. So we'll kind of call that a training business. And then our autism spectrum resources for marriage and family is where we coach or counsel specifically. Maybe there's a teenager, young adult, or marriage that is impacted with challenges of being a neurodiverse family or marriage. And that's where we kind of do the work with couples and individuals.
Well, you're busy.
Yes. And you keep giving me more ideas, Diane. So
I know. I'm so sorry. That's why I named this podcast Inspired Ideas, because I could talk about whatever and you can talk about whatever. It's so amazing because obviously ideas multiply. And when we're entrepreneurs, and I have a counseling background too, as many of you know, and that's one of the reasons that we really connected. When we switch into an entrepreneur mindset, it's very different than what we learned in counseling land, counseling school, master's degrees and trainings, and the world has changed, I know, since you and I both started our careers. And many, a worldwide pandemic has happened. So there's been so many shifts. How has your business, I like to talk about the evolution of us. And I have this quote I share, your clients want the evolution of you. So you have been evolving year after year and situation after situation. As you look back on these different, I guess, portions of your business, what do you know, like, what do you feel as you look at your younger self?
that's interesting because there's a couple of impacts there. Kind of growing up in the faith circles that I did, I do consider what I do in counseling and training as a ministry. And so I had kind of more of a ministry mindset. It really has not been until we've started talking that you have really reminded me that I am a business owner and I am an entrepreneur, but that just is not what I was thinking. There was like, because I'm an ordained minister, because I work in Christian circles, like this is a ministry. And while it's said a servant is worthy of their hire, Christians and Christian circles don't always mean that. It's like, well, if you're a faith person and I'm a faith person, then you should like give this to me. And so that's been a huge mindset of false guilt that I have had to overcome
Yeah.
because like when I first started out, I charged people $10 a session, Diane, $10 with a master's and an LPC. And even up until maybe a few years ago, I was still at like 60 or 80, always trying to be like, oh, I want to be accessible to the masses, but there was still this part of me that didn't really think in that entrepreneur way that I could actually charge, for my services. And one of my pastor colleagues, he's been working on me for 3 years. And then I think you hit the grand slam that knocked it all in. But he kept saying, Stephanie, you have not taken a vow of poverty. Stephanie, you have not taken a vow of poverty. And I think that when it clicked, that was the huge mindset like, oh, in my mind, I'm a minister and I'm a counselor, and that's like where my skill set is. But what are better ways to replicate things? What are ways to get more out to more people? So it's not just one-on-one counseling. That's how you can become more accessible, not just in your rates and fees, but the different services that you provide. And that's been a huge mindset shift that I would definitely credit our work together in, because that shifted me into, oh yes, I am a business owner. And you know what? It is okay for me to make money. And is it okay for me to make different products and services and not limit myself in one space? So that's been kind of the business side of my transformation.
I love that. I love that. I was, this is something we all struggle with. How do we charge? How do we charge more? How do I reach more people? And I know some of what you do is you've got a really successful podcast, really successful, just hit $100,000.
I wish $100,000.
Right? Okay. Yeah,
He's
come on.
prophesying over my podcast.
Yeah, 100,000 downloads. 100,000 downloads. And that's only been in the lot. I mean, you've been growing that for a couple years from what I am remembering. And then you have a book coming out. And all of these things, the way I have finally learned, these repetition is a gift. And I know that I have to hear something again and again and again, like you were mentioning with your pastor, and then conversations that you and I have had. And then we realize, okay, wow, I finally get it. I get it. But like the podcast is a ministry. It's a gift to the world. The book that you're about to launch and is coming very soon is a low cost, easy gift to the world to give them training, value, support, ideas, questions to ask. And we forget how much value we give just in an email, a post, a audio that we're, this training that we're recording right now is a value. It's a value. And it's a mindset shift that we have to remind ourselves of in order to go to the next level. Any
And I
thoughts?
think that that's been really important, for me too. I mean, I am pretty much a pretty confident person, but there's off and on, like I find like before that next door opens or that next successful things happen, I will get bombarded with imposter syndrome. And I will have to like go and like work on that and focus on that, like before a speaking thing. And they'll be like, who are you? You're just an autism mom, and forget all the training and research and published things that I've done. It's like, oh no, autism mom is getting ready to step up to the mic or be on the podcast. And it's still a continual fight of my own kind of transformation. There was so much in my mind from past people in my life who were trying to, women shouldn't do this and women shouldn't do that. And women aren't entrepreneurs and women should stay at home. And like, I still fight those things, sometimes that I'm still made with a purpose. I have a calling. I have a purpose. What I'm doing is adding value, and it doesn't have to be in a church to be ministry. Like those are still things that I still have to contend with from year to year.
Amen, girl. Amen. I mean, I believe it's continual. because if we're, I feel it too, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say me too. And as we step into the next dimension, we're gonna have, I feel like there's always this chaos and confusion. And who am I and what am I doing? And I don't know anything. And then like this moment, I call it the sunlight of the spirit. That's a phrase we use in the 12-step rooms. And it makes such a beautiful visual. Like I come out from the clouds finally and go, oh, oh, the miracle's right in front of me, or I know what I'm talking about. And I have experienced strength and hope. I have all this training and real life experience and a testimony and, oh, 5 certifications on the wall. The people that want help from you and me both, they just want to know. I mean, sometimes they don't care about all that. I mean, truly, they just need to know, have you been there? What'd you do? How'd you get across the bridge? How are we going there? Can you hold my hand? And here's a flashlight, right? But we can get that imposter syndrome just sneaks up no matter what level, and every new level, new level, new devil, right? I mean, but I have to continually work on that mindset of where is God calling me? And why am I actually so scared to go there and playing small? Where am I playing small? And where am I taking the easy way out? Because it's just more safe and comfy and cozy over there. So where are you? I know you're doing this. So where are some new places you've stepped into this year, and about to step into this year?
So, my husband and I started some research because there's a lot of research about autism out there, but not really in adults and not really in marriage, and then specifically not in autism and faith-based Christian marriages. So, we started stepping into that. And so, if you've ever done a research project, a thesis, a dissertation, doing a research article is like all of that on steroids. And so, that's kind of been the space. And so, we had the idea we didn't just want to write a book that's a narrative about our marriage and things we've learned. We really wanted to incorporate research and what's going on in the greater neurodiverse Christian couple world. So that was the original plan. And then my daughter said, "You know what, Mom, that book you wrote back in 2015, that's really your story about my life, and I'm almost 25, and I'd like for us to like redo that book." So I was like, great, well, I can do research and do all of this at the same time. So she and I were going to rewrite that book, do 2.0 version. And then my husband said, well, I'd like to add a father and a husband's perspective. And then my older daughter, who's 21, says, well, I'd like to add a sibling's perspective. So we started all working together with 4 authors and trying to put it together. We're calling it kind of a hindsight journey because now my girls are in their 20s. But now we've got a good 10 years past the really hard years. And so we also didn't want it to be a narrative. So it is our story. Then there's my professional side. Here's some things that would have been helpful. Here are organizations to help you take your next step. Here's trainings that Stephanie and Dan have done. Here's things for at the macro level for churches. If you want to reach out to these different organizations, here's whatever your next step is. Here's a place that you can take a next step. And so that kind of sidestepped our other research project momentarily, but we are in that. We just got the copy edits back. Now we got to do the book interior formatting and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully that is going to be launched by December. And then our reward for printing out that book is starting a new one in January. Yay.
Right. Obviously inspired ideas never end. So tell the listeners the name of the book that's coming so we can kind of plant the seed for them.
Yeah. So it's embracing the autism spectrum, finding hope and joy in your neurodiverse family journey. And it's practical tips and guides from lived and professional experience. And we just got the website up for it. We don't have a launch date yet, but that's www.christianneurodiverse families. Family is plural. And that's where all things about the book, because we'll have a workbook at some point, all the good things that you want to find out about the book and when it's coming, it'll be located there.
That's so great. So just for everybody listening, so there's christianneurodiversemarriage.com and christianneurodiversefamilies.com.
Yes, we wanted family, but somebody already bought that. So I
Yeah.
had to go with families to keep with the theme.
I love it. I love it. I hate when I go to GoDaddy. I was on there this morning running around going, oh darn, somebody already has the thing I want. But those are perfect. Those are perfect. So I was just thinking about, so Stephanie and I do what's called Voxer coaching, and I know you've added that to what you offer as well. But it was kind of a shock to you when Stephanie and I met. Actually, I don't think we ever like locked eyes or hugged or anything, but we were both at this conference almost a year ago at the time of this recording, and Stephanie won a door prize. So don't ever like negate those, throwing your business card in a hat. So tell them a little bit about how we met and then our evolution with our Voxer coaching.
All right, I'm just going to be honest. I'm going to be honest. I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know I was an entrepreneur back then. But we were at a Christian coaching conference, ICCI. I'll just throw that out there. We love you, ICCI. And I kept seeing the tables. There was Nakwi, Heather's table, and then you were right beside it. And there was a couple of other main tables. And I was like, oh, I don't really feel like networking or talking to people, and I don't really want to go up there. But I kept seeing this Michael Kors purse on the Nakwi table. And I was like, man, I really would love to have that Michael Kors purse. So I think y'all are at lunch or something. So all the tables were clear. And I went over and peered in the purse and I was like, there's not very many cards in here. So I had to go search through my stuff. I found a really old business card and threw it in there. And so come along with it was a coaching package, certain hours that came with it. It was like total like a $1,500 prize, but I was just locked in on the Michael's Kors purse. And so I was like, if I just win the purse, I'll be happy. So got the text almost like I was in the middle of a session when I got that text. And I was like, I am going to my purse. Almost tripped getting out of the session to get to the table. And then so kind of collected my purse and collected my prize. One of the first ones on there, I don't know if it was, I think it was a Zoom hour first, just to kind of connect and then to talk about the business. And after we met, I wasn't quite sure I really needed anything else. You talked about a Voxer package. I was like, okay, I'll try that. And at first I thought I was going to hate that with a passion, but then I realized kind of the way I work, being able to ask a question. I don't necessarily need 30 minutes in an hour. I need to ask a question, get an answer, and move forward. And so our package that we do has really worked for me, because if I don't now feel like I'm encroaching on your time. I know when your Voxer hours are, and I can be like, hey, I got a question and I need this tonight, or can you tell me by Friday?
Yeah.
And I can get that answer a little bit more immediately. So I didn't think I'd like it because, I've been doing Zoom so much, but I really enjoyed just being able to keep in touch that way. And it's been a level of accountability for me too, because I know I need to check in, and that kind of helps me do the next thing I need to do, because I'm going to have to tell Diane if I did it or not.
Yeah, I have loved it. I have loved, and that's been an evolution for me. I've added the Voxer coaching in a couple years ago, and I've tried it every which way, one day and 1 hour and 1 week. And the 1 week didn't work very well, as you and I figured out together. And now what my sweet spot is 1 month. And some of my clients, just like you, are on the recurring. And it gives us both this. So you and I both are awake early. And so oftentimes we're just doing this little check-in in the morning. And then, sometimes you'll send me that one in the afternoon, or if there's things throughout the day. I mean, it's not that it's just like this one moment, but I like the expansiveness of it. And I know you've added Voxer coaching to your offers too, correct?
Yes, I haven't found that it would ever work like for couples work, but I have found like for my clients who are more kind of in maintenance, not on crisis, but either maintenance or, sadly, some of mine are transitioning out of marriage into a divorce situation. So I was the marriage counselor, and it allows like a soft transition out, because there's a loss there again, right? Not only am I losing my marriage, but I'm this marriage counselor I've been working with for a year or two. I'm not going to be, in contact with this person. So the Voxer kind of allows a transition like to the new place, and then as these individuals may be getting a new counselor, I'm not in the way. I'm just kind of checking in and still a familiar voice that's caring and kind of coaching and do what your new coach or counselor is saying. And, and so that's been a nice transition for people who are in maintenance. That's like, it's kind of the same thing. I don't really know that I need 30 minutes or an hour, but sometimes a question pops up. This thing just happened, or this thing's going to happen over the week. And I know I can't get in your schedule. And so that's been helpful too, because maybe it's a thing about a child or an IEP or 504 in the school world, or this thing's popping up that, we always struggle on vacation or holidays. Can you give us some tips to remind us, what the things we need to remember are? And so I don't have a huge amount of those yet, but it's still met a need for a few people. I'm primarily, 45 minutes to an hour kind of coach, counselor kind of gal. But this did provide just one more space for contact connection for just different spaces and phases in life. I still want some accountability and support, but I just don't need that hour anymore.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I love about it as well. I love that you and I can check in, and I feel like we've got a dial, I can dial you up anytime, right? Not that I'm going to be sitting there. I'm not sitting by my Voxer all day. Just
right. Neither am I.
like, and we set those great boundaries. I mean, it's I didn't realize how you were using it to transition the couples. That's brilliant. That's really brilliant, because it still gives that lifeline and that connection. And it's a great process across. I have loved it's like another inspired idea. How can I use this to best serve the people that are too busy for Zoom? I have a couple clients that are working full time, and so they can't, squeeze in. I don't want to get on a Zoom at 6 o'clock at night. I'm not open to that anymore. I'm closed for businesses at 5, actually. And so it's just a fun way to continue to evolve ourselves. Hey, how can I serve these people, keep my good boundaries, and get them really the results they want, the transformation they want? So it's been fun for me.
Absolutely. It's also been really great because I have maybe teachers, nurses, other counselors, and they're on Zoom or they're in a classroom and they're in a different time zone.
Yes.
So this kind of asynchronous stuff helps. They know they can go on a break, or if they're walking out in the hall or on a bathroom break or between shifts or lunch, like they can check in knowing that, I just say before the end of the day, I'll get back to it depending on when it was left. And the time zone, but that just kind of helps them too, because it's like, oh man, I'm going back to work now. I don't have time because I'm in Eastern Standard and I'm the same way. I used to do 8, 9, 10 o'clock, 10 p.m. my time Zooms, because that was 7, on the other side, so I don't do that anymore. But the Voxer helps, like, okay, they got the question, they're going to get an answer. And now the time zone isn't as big of a deal either, because people can check in and they just know I'm going to get back to them as soon as I can. And you get those little breaks and moments going up and downstairs, changing out laundry. It doesn't mean that you're not as focused. It just means, hey, I can actually do this because I'm not trapped in front of a screen in a chair. I can get back to things a little bit.
Yeah. And I've found that I'll share things on Voxer that I would normally, I would just probably wouldn't think of when I'm on Zoom, because I just, and you and I have gotten to know each other as friends and colleagues and, coach client, and it's just this intimate voice experience. So anyway, like we've been going, I'm sorry, I just got off on a Voxer tangent, but I think it's really helpful for people to understand. I know for me, hearing behind the scenes is crucial. How does this work? How did you write a book? How did you transition from, from thinking like ministry versus to the mindset of entrepreneurship? And also, even just hearing what you and I talk about on the Voxer is going to be so helpful to someone. So you got your book coming. You've got a couple conferences. I'm going to see you at one of them. And what else? So you have another book coming in 2024. Well, I guess as we head towards the end of this, I mean, what are you excited? What what are you excited about as you look into the Stephanie of the next year? You've got probably one book for sure coming, another one launch, preparing to launch. And I know you've got a couple personal exciting events with some beautiful dresses.
Yes, weddings are in the future in my with my girls. I think it just came to me something I wanted to share. I don't know, this just came to me like if you're a woman and you've had a calling and a passion and it feels like it hasn't happened yet.
Mm,
So my plan was to be a counselor. I remember specifically standing in a conference hall. It's the largest Christian counseling thing that happens every other year. And I was newly licensed, newly pregnant, and the Holy Spirit, just spoke to me and said, "You're going to speak here one day."
ooh,
And I was like, and my mind was like, how? I just started. I'm an LPC. All the cool stuff's already taken. Like, there's no new place in marriage and family. Like, I'm
wow.
so young. And, it's just never going to happen. And I couldn't even think about because I hadn't experienced autism yet. My daughter hadn't been diagnosed. I hadn't experienced, life yet. And so I kind of got restless about it at first, like, God, you promised me this thing and it hadn't happened. It was more like a Joseph experience. I had to kind of go through the fire and the pit and go from the pit to the palace. And
Yeah.
then not only live the experience, heal from the experience, now get training in the experience so that I can train others. And so my daughter turned 20, the one that I was pregnant with turned 21 this year. And
Mm,
so I'm 21 years past. You're going to speak here one day and you're going to be in a different marriage and family field. And it was very discouraging over that time of thinking like, I'm not being used. I'm not doing this. My counseling practice isn't doing that well. And now I've got to come out of my career because I've got a daughter on the spectrum who needs me at home. And when it's God's timing and when
mm,
the door is right, and if you pursue do the things that you can do, take
mm.
your next steps, get your training, heal from what you have to heal from. 21 years later, I'm in the place that I remember standing. If I go back to that hotel, I remember where I was standing, when the Holy Spirit spoke that to me. And here we are 21 years. And so I'm excited about that, kind of going through all of that, that this is the fruition of labor and healing that came to this point, that God is faithful and steadfast and he didn't forget me and he held to his promise, but
Mhm.
yet I had to do my part. I had to do my part.
Oh my God, I was getting teared up when you were sharing that story because it was taking me back. Your story is so powerful, Stephanie. And it was, what year did you graduate with your master's?
I finished everything up in 2000. And then, you got to do all your LPC
Mhm.
licensing and hours. But I think I finished the schoolwork and the practicum supervision, all of that by like 1999, 2000.
Okay. So, so I got my master's in 97, and then I have had two significant events. One of those was my client that killed himself. And that was in 1990, that was in 1999, 1999. And walking through a 4-year legal battle and losing my counseling career and just completely being like devastated, brand new master's degree, brand new excitement for this career, and just really like losing everything. So as you were talking about that, all of that started to bubble to my mind. And then starting over, which, I mean, I believe we're professionals at that. I call myself a professional pivoter at this point. Starting over in the coaching world and really just having to start completely from scratch, like what, but not, I mean, there's so many similarities, but starting over, rebuilding, regathering, who am I? Am I all right? Total imposter syndrome. And also having a mark on my name that says malpractice. And basically they say, okay, you're not allowed to counsel. Okay, well, what can I do? What can I do with this big degree and a big old student loan? What can I do? Right? But that it's all part of the plan. It's all part of the plan. And then my recovery journey, getting sober, all of these things are just so, as we look back, like you were just doing, we needed to go through that. We had to go through those things to get to the other side where we can help so many more people. You are called and gifted to this place where you've had tragedy and testimony. And so am I. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think it's just and healing from it first because I think I tried to get in too soon into the niche, but I wasn't like, oh, I found it. It's autism and family marriage. There's no one here doing this, but I was still living it,
Yes.
and then had to do the healing from it because there's lots. You'll have to get the book to hear the whole story, but there was a lot of abuse in the situation. There was a lot of things going on with the school. There were illegal things going on, and you just can't go. I've got my banner now, I'm moving forward. You can't help from still your hurt and wounded place. You have to help from the healed from the wounded place. And then it's transformational. New layers come off all the time. The book brought up more stuff again. And it's like, oh, but I'm healed from that part. But I didn't really think about that next part. And so that can help me in this new area, that I'm helping people. So I think we're just what's fabulous about the body of Christ is that if we're willing to be vulnerable and not, because I was taught in counseling school, you're the professional, keep that facade up. You are the one that is there to help them. And I think that's detrimental. I mean, you have to be careful not to overshare, but kind of like you said, I'm here with you, I'm holding your hand, and I've got the flashlight. I've been on this journey and I'm here to walk with you. I'm not because I'm perfect. I have some professionalism and some training, but I have walked some of this path before. I have had these hurts and wounds before. And I just want to tell you, it's going to be okay. And
Yeah.
there is still hope for your future. And you're not alone in the journey. That's our tagline at the end of every podcast that now people kind of make fun of me for. But I'm like, that's the whole thing. Hope on the journey and that you're not alone. We
Mm,
weren't meant to be alone.
I love that so much. Yeah. I mean, rock on, girl. I can't wait to give you a hug in a few months.
It's
A
going to
big,
be close.
a big hug. And thank you so much for being willing to come here and be on my podcast.
Happy to be here. And again, can't wait to meet you in person. Not too much longer.
Yeah. So for those listening, make sure you go take a look. And the two websites are Christian Neurodiverse Marriage.com. It's a mouthful. And then Christian Neurodiverse. Hold on. Families.
Right. We got a marriage and then we have families.
Perfect. It's totally perfect. All right, my dear. Thank all of you for listening and keep doing your inspired ideas. And my tagline is we are braver together. And you've gotten to hear that here together today. All right. See you soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.